presenters has now begun. For the benefit of our guests who are interested in joining our club as opposed to starting your own, please note that in order to be a member of our club, you must be a current or former active member of Toastmasters International and have completed at least 6 speeches from either the traditional or Pathways programs. Or you must have substantive, relevant presentation experience that you demonstrate in a 3 to 5 minute speech delivered during our club meeting, and you will have the pleasure of hearing one of those today. All requests for membership are subject to board approval. If you have not already done so, please change your what we call Brady Bunch panel to ensure it shows your name and role if you have one. Right-click on your panel and select Rename to do so. We have members here, many guests from many countries throughout the world. As a professional organization, we ask that you please be aware of language or word usage that may be considered offensive or otherwise insensitive due to cultural differences. Please note that we will be recording the meeting and we may use your video and audio contributions for our club marketing purposes. Please mute your microphone when you are not speaking so that we won't listen to things such as whistling from our good friend Nick. Today's theme is contagion. Please welcome back our club president, distinguished Toastmaster, Lois Margolin.
Thank you, Lou. For those guests, just recognize that Sergeant at Arms speech has taken us, I think, 8 or 9 months now to perfect. We are constantly changing it, but there are a few things in there that for those that are guests and are going to be going on to their own clubs, if you are doing recordings, you probably want to make sure you tell your members and your guests that you are recording, because nobody likes to be surprised. And especially if you're going to be making your recordings public. If you put it behind the scene, no one really cares, but if they're public, it's a different animal. There are a number of amazing individuals on this call tonight. The Online Presenters Club has been in existence for about 3 years now. I urge you to capture email address numbers of people like Roger and Nick and David and myself and Elaine and Asil and Chris, Jim, and that has the OP in front of their name can probably help you through just about anything. So I do encourage all the online presenter members to have an OP in their name, just so that people know that they're dealing with the online presenters. My name is Lois Margolin. I'm here from Coral Springs, Florida. Yes, we're in South Broward area. Yes, we've heard all about Corona. We're smack in the middle of it, as is everyone else. I was one of the founding members with David, and we are ready for an incredible night tonight. So let's welcome our Toastmaster of the day, our very own Vice President of Education. Also, if you need a great name, that's another one who has all this technology in his belt. Please welcome Toastmaster John Quick, distinguished Toastmaster John Quick.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm here in quarantine. I've got all my resources with me so I can weather the storm and get through this virus. Our theme today is contagion. Or if you learned it by reading like I did and not being told what it is, then you think contagion. I still prefer contagion, but the dictionary says contagion. This theme I picked about 10 days ago, not knowing what relevance it would have in the last week of Toastmasters. I picked it because over the last 6 weeks or so, it's become of interest to our club. We've been discussing it more before and after the meeting. People bring it up in their table topics. We had an excellent speech giving an update on the status of the virus worldwide a couple weeks ago. Then in this last week, we've had a lot of our members helping out districts that are
Okay, John, we can't hear you. You're freezing. You want to see if you have a connection for us?
Received a message from Toastmasters International about how clubs can
John?
start going online.
Am I the only one here going in and out?
No, John's bandwidth appears to have dropped off a bit.
Okay.
I have a feeling he can't hear you though, Lois.
Lou, do you have a role today?
I am Topics Master.
Okay, well, let's see. Who would like to be our Toastmaster of the day until John gets back in? Who doesn't have a role? Thank you, Nick. You are Toastmaster of the day until John comes back.
Oh, I thought I was volunteering for chocolate. Okay, let's go and start this show on the road, shall we? We have, just like any other Toastmasters meeting, lots and lots of helpers. Therefore, I'd like to introduce to you the first helper, all the way from Kazakhstan. I want to introduce the R-counter, Asil Boyjanova.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. My role as a counter is to note and keep track of words and sounds used as a crutch instead of pausing by anyone who speaks during the meeting. I will note any uses of the crutch or filler words such as and, well, but, so, like, you know, as well as sounds like and I'll give my report when our general evaluator calls upon me. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Asil. Really appreciate that. Now, our next role player, all the way from, well, I don't know whether he's in Dallas or further elsewhere in the USA. Long time no see, my friend. Please welcome timer Roger Fung.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I am your timer for today. And here's a quick tip for those of you who are not familiar with doing timing online. You can use the old trusty time card like before, but look, I've got disappearing colors. What is one thing you don't want to do is use something like your phone because it's reflective. You might want to have physical paper in front of you or a virtual background like this. When our speakers make their minimum time, they will see the green, middle of the way, yellow, and they will see the red, and 30 seconds to wrap up. If they go over 1 minute after their maximum, I will start talking and yank them out of the room. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Roger. Now, our next helper, now she's a reasonably new member, hence I don't know where she is. However, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our grammarian tonight, Emily Thompson.
Thank you, Nick. As grammarian today, and I am from Michigan in the United States, as grammarian today, my job is to note use of our word of the day, which today is contagion. So I get 1 for that. Additionally, I'm to look for misuse of words and then also good or improper use of the English language. I will then give my report when called upon by the general evaluator.
Thank you very much for that. Now, our next helper, who I believe, I may be wrong, I believe is somewhere near Maryland. Please welcome our watcher, Elaine Nieberding.
Hello, honored guests from all around the world, online presenters, and replay viewers. Of course, there will be lots, I expect, of this meeting. As the watcher, I have a role that's similar to one in brick and mortar clubs of watching gestures and body language. But that's not all, because for speakers or anyone performing a role, I want to see how they are looking in the frame, in the video frame here in Zoom. And what else will I be watching? Well, I'll be watching the gallery to see how well people are paying attention. Is the speaker engaging the audience? And I'll also be looking at lighting and the participation of our different audience members. Additionally, the watcher puts specs on to catch things about lighting, backgrounds, use of slides or transitions, and make remarks about what's effective or might use a little fine tuning. Like the others, I give a condensed report at the end. Back to you, Nick.
Thank you very much, Elaine. Now,
Actually, Nick, I
Whoa.
think John Wick is back on.
okay, but I still get paid, right?
You do. Double your
Okay.
salary for quick thinking.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nick, for taking over. I ran out of internet, but unlike most, I have backup in my quarantine, so I'm not fighting out on the street in the stores trying to get the last internet off the shelf. But thanks so much for covering me during that exact moment when I ran out of internet. Have we introduced everyone? I think we need to hear from chat monitor, Deborah Carr.
Hi, everyone. Excuse me, I'm Deborah Carr, and I am watching the chat, keeping an eye on it. I will remind you periodically, or at the end especially, that you can save the chat at the end for all the links, and I will just keep an eye on it tonight and report back later.
Thank you, Deborah. Our vote counter is Theresa Smith.
Good evening, everybody from Illinois. My job tonight is vote counter, so I will be keeping track of the best speaker, the best evaluator, and the best table topics votes, and that will be taken through the chat box. So I'll remind you who the person is or who the people are to vote in each category, and I'll report on it later. Thank you. Back to you.
Hey, thank you, Tricia, and thank you to all of our role holders tonight who are helping with our meeting. Our meeting has three parts. First, we'll do prepared speeches, which members have, I see you, Nick, which members have made ready in advance. Then we'll have our table topics where we practice our impromptu speaking. Then we'll have our evaluations where our speakers will get immediate feedback. We'll all learn from the feedback, and we'll get our reports from our different role holders. Nick, did you have something to announce?
Just need to introduce a vote counter.
Oh, yes, we did. It's Theresa Smith. Thank you. Our first speaker tonight is David Carr. The title of his speech is A Mini Webinar Speech. Our founding club president, David Carr, will explain the purpose of the mini webinar contest in a speech that follows the format of a webinar speech contest. At the end, he will do a Q&A based on the questions that you post in the chat. Let's welcome David Carr with his mini webinar speech.
Apologies, I needed to unmute. Oldest trick in the book. We all get it wrong sometimes. Folks, I'm going to be giving a speech about the mini webinar contest following the format of the mini webinar contest. That means it's a 6 to 8 minute speech where towards the end, I'm supposed to engage in some interactivity with the audience. We'll discuss it in more detail as we go along. Let's see. All right, David's already showing that he's not as much of a master of this stuff as he's supposed to be. How to participate in our mini webinar contest. So this here would be the moment that you're looking for. Everybody's clapping. Third. Come on, second. Oh, the suspense is killing me. Here comes. Second, oh my gosh, it's taken a long time. Oh, Jim Barber. This is from a couple of years ago. This was actually the first contest we held in this format. And who's going to be first? Does anybody remember who was first? Who's going to be first? Oh, it was Carol Prahinsky. Not too bad she's not here for this. So this is a contest that we cooked up on our own. Next week, we're going to be doing the video speech contest, which is actually an official Toastmasters contest format for undistricted clubs. That means not only online clubs, but also clubs in remote areas of the world where they don't have an established district setup. So the video speech contest is essentially the international speech contest done online or done on video. You have to submit an unedited video to headquarters. They do some judging and they announce that at the international convention. The mini webinar contest, again, is 6 to 8 minutes. Field questions from the chat. Now you have the option to have the chat monitor watch for questions and relay them to you. Now this is very similar to a professional webinar format, actually. Particularly when you have an event that has, say, hundreds of people online, you probably can't have everybody unmuting and just shouting out their questions. So having questions posted in the chat is a very common format that you see. And it's also done on platforms that don't really allow the audience to speak out loud, that only invite questions via chat. So we're trying to allow for interactivity and also to demonstrate some mastery of skills specific to online presentation. So we're going to be doing this in just a few weeks on April 20th. And again, this is not an official Toastmasters format. It's not forbidden, but it's not particularly encouraged either necessarily. But it's something that we're doing to learn things related to the specific format of this club. This is the speech that Carol gave that first year that she won. It was our first year in existence, I believe, which was about negotiation styles. So this was given as a more or less of a straight webinar speech. I think we did have some people who tried to stand up for the speech. I think that's maybe more appropriate for the video speech contest. Jim Barber had a slide built in to ask for questions. And then Sunny Fridge, the year she won, she had this very fun, quite elaborate visual presentation built around the idea of a family feud contest. And she would unveil the questions as she went and show, you know, what the answer was. So she did a lot with the idea to really build in some interactivity and some interesting visual presentation. So that was a good one that year. We actually haven't done this in a while. I did also cook up some interactive tools for judging the contest. So the judges all got a dashboard they could sign into, they could rank the speakers. There's a little button that helps you sort out what those rankings are once you add everything up. And so I like it because when I'm trying to do the regular paper ballot, it takes me a while to do the math. It's simple addition. Why can't I do it faster? But it takes me a while. And so we check to record that as the official vote and we submit it. I have done some work recently on trying to make this mobile friendly. So this is what that would look like on an Android, more or less, as best as my mobile screen recorder could capture it. And then the judges and the chief judge, the people who are officiating the contest can sort of watch those votes roll in. Right now, all the judges have voted and, oh, here comes the timers report. JFK was apparently a little bit long-winded, so he was disqualified, and Abraham Lincoln seems to have won. So let's say, who is the timer? Because I was thinking it was a sill, and I'm not seeing a timer.
6
Roger.
minutes.
Roger, and you have
All
Brian.
right, Roger is the timer. Okay. Thank you, Roger. And that is the point where I pause and ask for questions from the audience. Deborah Carr, have you been watching the chat? Would you be able to relay some questions to me?
Absolutely. The first one is, where to go? Because it just slid over. What are the themes used in the contest in the past, and what would be suitable for webinars?
Well, again, I think of any kind of professional webinar that you might have attended. They're usually more educational focused. I don't think the inspirational speech webinar is really a thing. So again, we have a video speech contest next week, and for those of you who are trying to figure out how to do traditional contests, move them online, that is more like the international speech contest. It will be a good model for you. But this is this other fun and interesting professional thing that we have cooked up just for our club.
Okay, if there is one, excuse me, one more. Is your tool incorporated into Zoom?
The voting tool is incorporated into the WordPress for Toastmasters software that I've been working on for a number of years. That is how our club is set up. It's also part of, if you RSVP'd for the meeting, it was flowing through that software. Now I have made it sort of independently available. So if you don't necessarily want to convert your club website, you can go to contest.toastmos.org and sign up to set up a contest. So you could do that at the area or division level. I do have to caution you that Toastmasters International has not officially sanctioned the use of this thing. I'm trying to see if I can get a ruling that the checking the box and saying this is my official vote could be the equivalent of a signature. But in the meantime, you might need to take a picture of a paper ballot and text it to somebody.
Okay.
Mr. Toastmaster, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, David, for demonstrating the webinar contest format, which is coming up in April for us. We also have the speech contest next week. Our second speaker today is Antoinette Trim. She's working from Motivational Strategies, Level 5, Demonstrating Expertise, Lessons Learned in the Pathways Educational Program. The title of her speech is Lessons Learned. As we travel through life, there are lessons to be learned. Some we learn the hard way, and some are just common sense. Let's welcome Antoinette Trim for her lessons learned.
Good evening, my fellow Toastmasters. I know that many of you all, or many of us, we have been inundated with information about COVID-19 and its effects, maybe in economic side, or it could be on the way we socialize. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have had 4 cases confirmed so far, but 64 people were tested. When we heard this, people began panic buying. Of course, all cleaning agents, from toilet paper, hand sanitizers, Clorox, you just name it. Grocery lines, all filled. Grocery lines all outside the door. Schools were closed for about 1 week in the first instance, and just last night, our Prime Minister announced that the schools will be closed until the 20th of April, as well as all churches and all rum shops will be closed as well. And however, besides those things, I would like to come back now to motivational strategies, the pathway that I chose for online presenters. And I have learned a few lessons well in pathways, not only from online presenters, but also from my brick and mortar club. Firstly, I've learned the idea of projection of my voice. I remembered when I first started to do my speech, hardly anybody was hearing me. And then someone had to motion in the crowd, especially on my brick and mortar club, to speak a little louder. And now I find myself speaking sometimes too loud. But I am glad that I have learned now how to project my voice. The other thing that I have learned as well is eye contact. I'm very shy. I'm a very shy person. And so I don't like to look to people with, in their eyes, straight in their eyes. So I would be looking up, down, left, right, all over the globe. But now I've learned to just look at people straight in their eyes. They cannot do you anything. And those were two lessons that I've learned. Further, with respect to fillers, especially in the Caribbean, we like to use right? And we always have this sing-song way of right. And now I am ever so conscious about it. Even when other people are giving speeches, I'm saying, oh my goodness, why are they using so many fillers? And I have come to realize that fillers could really, hamper your speech. And at times I know that I'm guilty, that I do use fillers, but I try very hard. At least when I first started Toastmasters, it was like 10 in one speech, but now I've reduced it to about 2 or 3. So that's one of my other lessons that I've learned. And also, I often like to critique people, especially people who are giving speeches. For instance, in my church, where someone may stand up to give a lesson, a Sunday school lesson, or to preach, or even at work when we do presentations, I critique them. So I look at their stance, I look at how their facial expression, I even consider the grammar, and I just like to look at that and critique them over and over. And I'm very happy for Toastmasters, both with my brick and mortar club and my online presenters club. I learn a lot, really learn a lot. As a matter of fact, when I'm about to do a role in my brick and mortar club, I will always go back to my online presenters and look at the various people who perform various roles. For example, Roger. For example, Elaine. For example, oh, my friend Jim Barber. And I will try to mimic them and put it in my own style, because not everybody could be a Jim Barber, not everybody can be a Roger. So I am just taking lessons that learn from them and just put it in my format, in my own styles. And I also like to introduce people to online presenters. I would tell my friends, even those in my brick and mortar club, like Tobago professional speakers, I would always draw a reference to online presenters. And I would say, no, we don't do it that way. And some of them promised me that they would really join the online presenters. And I'm very happy to be a part of online presenters. As a matter of fact, I'm even signing up to do another pathway with online presenters. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you, Antoinette. Mr. Timer, can you tell us if our 2 speakers qualify for voting today?
Mr. Toastmaster, both of them qualify for their time.
Thank you, and please post the exact times in the chat. Yes,
John,
Deborah?
Chris Gould was going.
Yeah, for timing considerations. Okay, Chris, you would have to do it in about 3 minutes, okay?
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. I'll pass. You can go on.
Okay, our second segment of the day is table topics. That's where we practice our impromptu speeches. We also have a special prospective member speech today. To get this started, let's invite our topics master, Lou Brown.
Thank you, Toastmaster. Quick, for our guests who may not be Toastmasters, what is Table Topics all about? It is a 1 to 2 minute speech showcasing your ability to speak off the cuff, which is very important in work and social situations. Table topics are, as I mentioned, 1 to 2 minutes. Our timers, I'm sure, all ready to go. Before we hop into that, I'm going to turn it over briefly to our Vice President of Membership, Toastmaster Elaine Eberding, to conduct one of those awesome new member request speeches that I mentioned in my Sergeant at Arms intro. Take it away, Elaine.
Hello, everyone, and I'd especially like to welcome our special guest, Theresa Davila. She has had a little bit of experience in Toastmasters, but didn't meet the requirement to just ask for approval to join. So she's giving a 3 to 5 minute speech, helping us get to know her, hearing about her presentation background and what she might contribute to the group. With that, I'm going to turn it on over. Let's all give a warm welcome to Theresa Davila.
Thank you, Toastmaster Elaine. If you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going. I have respect for the past, but I'm a person of the moment. Maya Angelou. I come before you, Toastmasters, to formally introduce myself and to share a glimpse of the path that brought me here and of what lies ahead. As the baby in a family of 4 sisters, my initial private speaking engagements, I had to fight tooth and nail to get a word in edgewise, so I made up in volume and content for what I lacked in an audience that would give a darn. I grew up and my much older than me sisters went off to college, they married, my human audience disappeared, so I began giving speeches to our pets on our family farm. They were great listeners. Fortunately, my parents gave me carte blanche to pick any books that I wanted when our school had a book sale. So I wonder today if that really might have been a tactic just to kind of keep me quiet. And why would they want to keep me quiet? Well, you see, I was not just the baby in the family. I was the baby that came quite unexpectedly, like a contagion, quite a few years later when my mom and dad were solidly middle-aged and probably ready for some peace and quiet. Books didn't keep me quiet for long, however. They stimulated my curiosity, so perhaps my parents should have invested in earplugs if they wanted rest. Let's fast forward a few years to high school, where my first public speaking engagement occurred in my senior year. It was the culmination of an innovative cultural immersion trip, which had one far-sighted teacher taking about a dozen students off to the East Coast for a semester-long tour of the Eastern Seaboard and of the seat of our government. The course, called American Civilization Travel Seminar, or ACTS for short, was good for over 17.5 high school credits. And as such, it appealed to me because I could get those credits done, and it also had some intense requirements. The final exam was a spoken presentation that was created from a video photo documentary, which we had actually taken with our own 35mm cameras and put onto a 35mm slide tray. The presentation was really meant to convey what we'd learned while traveling our nation's great eastern seaboard. What I learned was that it had really opened my mind and changed my perspective forever. Forever, because for all of the amazing experiences that a 17-year-old could have when they're cut wild in a place like New York City, what really impacted me was the wonderful rainbow of diversity that shines throughout our great country. A few years later in college, public speaking engagement number 2 arose when I was asked to give a presentation to the college's board. The subject matter was an internship experience that I had had at Northwestern University. The crowd was relatively large and important at about 100 people, and I frankly don't remember much other than I had a really great time giving that presentation to the group. After college with a degree in business management and human resources, I was off to the races for creating and making a wide variety of presentations to different audiences. Most of them, as an HR manager, were really for training and development or in-service purposes. Later in my career, I built my skills and I presented on a variety of topics from personality systems, quadrant testing, to diversity and inclusion training. The largest group that I've ever presented to was about 300 people at a chamber meeting in Windsor, Ontario on the People Map personality system. So I guess that I could even say that I'm truly an international speaker. Many years have passed since my last TM speech, and today I come to you with requesting membership for two specific goals in mind. First, to begin a mutually symbiotic relationship with this group, sharing my knowledge from my life's experiences, and in turn, learning from other people's experience. Second, I'm also here to improve my online presenting skills for two purposes: closing business in an online meetings and launching an online podcast for top leaders. Like many of you, there are endless facets to who I am: board certified leadership coach, former corporate HR leader, diversity inclusion champion, now business owner, and a passionate purveyor of justice for all. The diversity and the humor in this club, in this Toastmasters group, is incredibly infectious, like a contagion. As a former member of the Diversity Inclusion Center at Hewitt Associates, I score really high on my cross-cultural competencies, and I challenge myself daily by living in a cross-cultural marriage. When it comes to working with our friends across the globe, we have to abandon the golden rule and instead focus on using the platinum rule. My vision is to contribute to this Toastmasters group by following the platinum rule, which is treating others as they wish to be treated. And that includes if people want me to share insights, coaching, and constructive thoughts. Participating in this online Presenters Toastmasters family will be an honor, and I'll be able to learn and mentor from others as well as help other people with my skills. And to end it all, I just want to continue to be a person of the moment with respect for the past. Thank you, and back to you, Elaine.
Well, that was quite a surprise and full and enriching speech. We could have said it was our third scheduled real speech for the night because it was that well prepared. Thank you so much. Back to you, Table Topics Master Lou Brown.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Nieberding. An added challenge of delivering table topics in an online format is the ability to look at the camera and not at all of the Brady Bunch squares. Toastmaster Davila, you did an excellent job in doing that. I got to say, a lot of us are still challenged in our attempts to do that ourselves. I may call out to do a table topic for some of our guests. Hopefully you're okay with that, and I apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name. I will provide the topic and then call on a name and ask you to respond to the question or comment. Again, the word of the day is contagion. Do your best to include that in the topic. Our first one: how are you absorbing all of this news about COVID-19? Toastmaster Knudsen. We don't hear you. Maybe you need to unmute.
Joy, you've been unmuted.
Oh, did you hear the topic, Joy? I will repeat. How are you absorbing all of this news about COVID-19?
I try to stay calm because there's not much we can do about it. And anyhow, I travel all over the world and are exposed to all kinds of diseases. So I just follow the same instructions and rules I always have followed. And right now I'm actually in San Diego, which looks like a ghost town. There is not much traffic and the restaurants are empty and people are staying indoors. So it doesn't really affect me, but of course I try to keep the distance to other people at public places. However, I don't let it distract whatever I want to do in my daily life. So I'm doing the same kind of, or different kind of volunteering as I always do. Right now, I have been helping with a friend to empty her garage and take things to thrift stores and other places where they can make use of the things she doesn't need. And there's not much else I can do about this, because to me it seems like a hysteria. But I think it's because in daily life, most people don't think of these things, how to protect yourself from getting sick and how to protect other people from getting infected if you are sick. But I'm so used to it that I just continue in the same way I have been doing before. That's all I can say on this subject.
Thank you, Toastmaster Knudsen. Very well done. As a reminder, your mute-unmute button is on the lower left corner of your screen. How did they come up with the name COVID-19? Toastmaster John Callahan.
Master Table Topics Master Lewis Brown, I gotta thank you so much for that incredible question. How did they come up with this wonderful name of COVID-19? I am envisioning there was probably a group of scientists sitting in a boardroom looking up at the diagram that had all of this amazing information all diagrammed out, and they just started connecting words together. And they first had something about coughing because it's going to make you cough. And then it's going to have something about overheating because you're going to get a temperature. And then there was something about your vision would be blurry. So they're connecting all. And then there was something about making you feel icky. And they couldn't really put it into good words. Icky was the best thing they could use to describe it. So they came up with icky. And they said, okay, what else have we? Oh, it's a disease. Yeah, it's a disease. And all of a sudden they connected all these words together and it turned into COVID. But then they said, well, wait a minute. We need something else. We've got to date this thing. And they said, well, wait, what year is this? Now, this is the key. This wasn't a 2020 disease. This was a 2019 disease when it was first named. And they had that name up on the board of the date of the meeting. And they connected all these dots and voila, COVID-19, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster Callahan. There's usually an acronym for everything, isn't there? I'm not surprised. Share how you would have a conversation with a child to calmly explain what's going on. Adrian, I believe it's District 18.
I knew you were going to pick me. Yeah, yes. Okay, yes, let's see. Well, Johnny, let me explain to you what it means when we talk about COVID-19. COVID-19 is a virus. You've heard of people getting the flu, correct? It's very similar to having the flu. People will get sick, they might cough, they might get a fever, but it's really nothing for you to worry about because from what we can tell, it really does not affect you kids. But as with many things, you kids can carry it to us grown-ups, which we don't necessarily appreciate very much, but we still love you anyway. But in addition to the coughing and maybe having a fever, you might notice that people will also wear masks. And they wear the mask mostly to protect you so that you will not get the virus. And therefore, they're just trying to be helpful towards others by wearing a mask. There's no need for you to be afraid of kids or anyone else who might be wearing a mask because it's not anything that would be damaging to you. It's really just to protect you. In addition, the fact that we have COVID-19 means you get to stay home for a long time and play as much as you want and drive your parents crazy. Back to you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Adrian. Well done. I'm sure the kids will be very calm knowing they can stay home all day, huh? Are you a panic shopper or not? And why? Toastmaster Jay Davidson.
I'm not too much of a panic shopper, but I do have a few items that I consider to be necessary for my life. I like to have fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, and something that I eat every morning for breakfast is oatmeal. Today I went to Costco and I found that I was able to buy fresh fruit and vegetables, but they were out of oatmeal. And I have only 2 or 3 days supply left. I don't like to think that I panic. I can probably make up for it in some other way, but I contacted friends who were about 30 miles away to find out if they were going to Costco and if they could check to see if they had the kind of oatmeal that I was looking for. And that way I can continue to have what is not, I wouldn't say that I'm panicking. I'm just looking for a few creature comforts to keep me going so that I don't have to scramble for other items that are not typical for me to have for breakfast. Back to you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Davidson. Well done. How have you just been adjusting to this new normal, Toastmaster Cigar Cool Kami?
Thank you, Table Topic Master. Greetings, online presenter, distinguished guest. How am I adjusting to this COVID-19 environment? Just like everyone says, it's like a contagion. I'm trying to absorb everybody's energy, high spirit, and spend a best time with my family. And what is the best way to explore this new online world through online presenter? It's like my mom tells me, just be open for new opportunity. So ladies and gentlemen, I give you this, just like my mom said, just open for new opportunities, look for new opportunities every day, every minute. Thank you, back to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. Well done. We had 5 amazing topics, speeches. Please send your vote for your favorite topic speaker over to our vote counter. Actually, before you do that, timer, did all of our speakers qualify?
Mr. Table Topic Master, all speaker qualifies. Your time are listed in the chat box. Back to you.
Wonderful. And the names are also listed in the chat box. Please vote for your favorite topic master. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. Topics Master, and all of our Topics Master. And wow, thank you, Trisha and myself and Roger for storming the chat and getting all those names in there for people. It's funny that we triplicated that duty, but we know how important it is to get everybody's name out there for voting purposes. If you need to send a vote, click on Trisha's name or use the Dropbox to find her name. That way you'll send it privately just to her, and it'll be top secret until the end of the meeting. Next up is our general evaluation segment. This is where we get lots of feedback for improvement. Let's invite our general evaluator tonight, Graham Carnes.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, all the guests. Thank you, everybody who's come along tonight. And thank you particularly to those who have been beavering away behind the scenes like some sort of contagion, taking notes of everything that's happening. The first of those is the timer. Roger, you've put all of the timing into the chat box. Is there anything else you wish to add as timekeeper?
Not at this time. Thank you, Graham.
No problems. In that case, we'll move on to our R counter. Asil, you've been counting the R's, and I'm really glad that you don't get to count them you get to count them before I start speaking, because that way I can make as many as I want to, but I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to ask for your report.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Well, I was prepared to be smart, telling that you can use pause instead of filler words to collect your thoughts, calm your nerves, and build suspense. But everyone seemed so calm, and I didn't get much of catching of filler words and no and so back to you, Mr. General Evaluator. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Counter. Okay, I'm GE. I get to do what I want, when I want. But you're right, I should actually have called for the evaluators first, and I do apologize for that. I was working off the agenda rather than actually thinking about what I'm doing. Everything that happens in Toastmasters, ladies and gentlemen, is evaluated, and I say this particularly for our guests who may not be familiar with the Toastmasters experience. We don't criticize. We don't judge. Well, we do, but only in competitions. But we do provide feedback. We do provide evaluation. There is not much point in us sitting here flapping our gums unless we get told what we did well and what we can improve upon. So, to start with our evaluations tonight, I'm going to start with our first evaluation, and that is by Sarah. Now, Sarah was evaluating David's presentation, and for a period of 2 to 3 minutes with indications at 2, 2.5 and 3, please, Mr. Timekeeper, can I have Sarah step forward to the microphone or the camera and present her evaluation.
Thank you very much, General Evaluator. Since David had to leave the meeting earlier, my evaluation will be more talking to everyone presenting in our meeting today. I think there's a lot of things we can all learn from David's speech. First of all, what I do like about David's speech, I really like the format that he chose. As a perfect online presenter, he chose to use a slide, and he has a lot of helpful information on his slide. We can see different type of webinars people have conducted before, and it is super easy to follow, and it gives us a very good illustration of the content that he's talking about. Obviously, when we follow his speech, we know he has a lot of information, and there's a lot of useful tools and different techniques that he introduced to us. That is all super helpful to everyone. Some suggestions I would like to give to David's speech. First of all, even for expert as David, to start a virtual presentation, can be glitches. And for every one of us, that would happen to us as well. My suggestion is for everyone to always prepare a few jokes to use under certain circumstances. Good humor can be contagious. If the audience feel you at ease and laugh about what happened, that will lighten the mood and make the following presentation go much easier. Second, I think because David has a lot of knowledge about the topic, I think that will happen to any one of us. It is extremely important to choose your material well. What I would recommend to think about what is your target audience that you want to talk to. When I listened to David's speech, I wasn't very clear if he was trying to talk to people who want to compete in a webinar competition, or he was trying to talk to people who want to organize a webinar competition. For those different target audience, the information they're looking for can be different. If you choose and made clear, this is the target audience I want to talk to, and stick to your target audience along the line, that will make much easier for people to follow. And the information you want to pass is shows up much stronger as well. All in all, I really appreciate David gave us this presentation, and especially a lot of the tools, the voting webpage, a lot of things that we can take back and use in our own club. I think that's a lot of good information, and I strongly suggest everybody to watch his speech again, and then also to share with people you think who can use this information. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for that evaluation. And I'll now call on our second evaluator, and that's Jim Barber. Jim was evaluating Antoinette's presentation on things I have learned, demonstrating expertise and lessons learned to, again, for a period of 2 to 3 minutes. Please welcome Jim Barber.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. My fellow Toastmasters, our plethora of guests tonight, and especially, of course, Toastmaster Antoinette Trim. Antoinette, I think I was your first evaluator when you first came to Online Presenters, and it has been a wonderful experience watching your growth over the time that you have been here. I hope you don't mind my describing you. At the beginning, you were nervous, you were somewhat shy, and I felt a little sorry for you. And I thought, oh, I hope I can get her to open up a little bit. And you have. You have grown from that to being an accomplished, confident presenter. Congratulations. Very, very well done. Your diction, your clarity, your vocal power, your vocal variety, your overall visual presence, all of these are top-notch. You established a great rapport with your audience. There's 3 things that I want to address specifically. First, you are off-center on the video screen. Normally, I tell people, get centered. But in your case, this works. I like the way you deliberately put yourself off to the side. It's very artistic. It's different. I like it. It's good. Stick with it. Second thing is your background. Most people's backgrounds are flat. It's the same distance behind them. Yours is on a diagonal, which could work, it could not work. In your case, it does, because the larger part of the images are off to the side, and so that works very nice. It gives a sense of perspective to your image. It's not flat like it would be otherwise. Very three-dimensional. I like that. The third thing is your eye contact. I don't know how your eye contact was. If you'll go back and check the replay, you'll see that the image, the Brady Bunch image off your computer screen was reflected in your glasses. So I couldn't see if you were looking. I couldn't see if you were asleep. I don't know. I couldn't see your eyes. I don't know quite what you can do about that. If your camera is detachable, then you can change the image, change the angle of the camera as opposed to your computer screen. If it's attached, if it's part of your laptop, then you're just going to have to play with it and see what you can do to get that image away, because you've got great eyes. We want to be able to see you making eye contact with us, and we couldn't do it tonight. But that was the only suggestion that I have. You have an infectious enthusiasm. You are a joy to listen to, and I'm looking forward to your next presentation. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you once again for an excellent evaluation. And as General Evaluator, I get to say that. All right, let's return to our ancillary roles. Roger, you get another bite at the cherry. You get to tell us once more how we did with timings.
Yes, Mr. General Evaluator, both of our evaluators came in on time. Sarah did it in 3 minutes, 12 seconds. Jim did it in 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Back to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So once again, both of our evaluators are available for voting. Please send your vote to the vote counter, who is in the thing as vote counter Trisha AS. And you can vote for either of the evaluators, Sarah or for Jim. So now returning to our ancillary roles, we had the R counter. Now let's find out about how good we done with the language A. So our grammarian for today is Emily.
Thank you, Graham. And regarding the word of the day, we had great use of the word of the day. It was a very popular word. In just the speaking roles, John Quick had 3 instances, Lou Brown 2, Theresa Davila 2, I had 1, Sagar had 1, Graham had 1, and then we moved to the online. It was kind of hard to count all the uses, but Hetzi had 1 use, and John Quick had, I believe, 5 uses of the word. He really liked his own word quite a bit. We had some tremendous words. I did not hear much that was misused, but there were some things I liked, such as Lou Brown referring to our tiles as Brady Bunch squares. I liked that John Callahan in his table topics used the word icky and voila in the same table topic. We all enjoyed the panic shopping, the notion of panic shopping that Lou Brown brought up. That also got some play in the chat. We all liked Jim Barber using the word plethora, and I think I'd better end there. It was a very interesting meeting with so many people. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you for that. Now, our watcher has been watching us closely to see what we've been doing right and what we've been doing wrong, and to make suggestions on how we look. So, Elaine, N-I-E-B-E-R-D-E-I-N-G, Elaine Nieberding, it's all yours.
You're remembering my icebreaker speech, Graham. That makes me chuckle. It warms my heart. Well, the first thing I'm going to mention is that given that our theme was coronavirus, it was very interesting that our Toastmaster of the day had a white background. One of our very infectious table topic speaker, John, had a plain black background, and Jim Gould popped on up, the coronavirus right on behind him. That was most fascinating. I'd especially like to mention Cigar, one of our table topics respondents and newest member of Online Presenters. I want to especially comment on how nicely he was framed and positioned well enough so that we could really see effective body gestures while he was making his brief impromptu response. That was just great. The last thing I want to say is, with about 75 people here this evening, a full 47 are showing up in ways that we can see them. That is great. Only 20 or so were kind of had their cameras off, or were in hide mode, or were phoning in or something. So it was so great that we could see who our audience was. And lastly, so many of you, when Antoinette was giving her speech, talking about becoming more confident and improving about doing filler words, so many people were smiling because they remembered when that was their experience too. Back to you, Graham, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you very much. So you can clap. All right, now we've spoken before about what was happening in the chat, but let's find out more directly with Deborah Carr.
Well, the chat overall it kicked off fabulous. I initially told David, I said, we might have to explain the chat box, but yet we didn't have to explain that at all. You know, when we were first doing introductions, before everybody was jumping on, because obviously people have been aware of using these. And what was really nice is how many of the guests just went ahead and introduced themselves automatically in there, which, you know, helped out because we had so many people coming on. What was also nice is that during the talks and the presentations, the chat went still. It was just quiet. People were really paying attention, where sometimes we'll, you know, gibberish in between there. We'll sneak in and make a couple comments about beer or whatever. And so that was just focused. Everyone was focused on the speeches. And then naturally with incorporating humor, that came prepared. That was about having some prepared jokes. So someone mentioned, what about the ID10 tear and the Y2K? You know, you know, we all have jokes that we can bring up about, you know, to incorporate for different things like this. Tonight was on the quarantine. The other part was David has posted his links to a couple of things, and if you want to save the chat, over at the very bottom where it says file, there's 3 or 4 dots, and you just hit that and you can save the chat for yourself, and then you'll have those links. Back to you, Graham.
Thank you, Madam Chat, Madam Watcher. Well done for that. So now it's time. No, your Watcher, your chat monitor. It says so, even though you say Watcher on your screen, which confused me. All right. So are there any other ancillary roles that I have missed? Speak now or forever hold your peace. In that case, I will do my general evaluation of the meeting. And I want to begin by talking about flexibility. Chaos is contagion. When something starts to go wrong in a Toastmasters meeting, there seems to be an ongoing chaos about it. It becomes contagious. But what I'd really like to commend tonight is the Toastmaster and other members for stepping in when that started to happen. When, for example, John's bandwidth started to fall away, Nick stepped in and took over the role of Toastmaster while John was getting back online. Well done that. Flexibility is important in any Toastmasters meeting, but it's particularly important in an online meeting where you can't gesture to somebody from across the room. You can send chats to people, and John and I were chatting for much of the evening with me making suggestions, him making responses, all that sort of thing. But in an online meeting, it is important that you be flexible. So well done. John, for example, reorganized it so that because David had to leave to go to another meeting, he reorganized it so that David got to speak first. Now that threw the evaluations into a little bit of chaos because neither of our evaluators were quite sure at that point who they were evaluating. But again, they were both flexible and agreed to provide evaluations for whoever it was I, as general evaluator, told them they were going to do. Talking of those evaluations, Sarah's evaluation of David used the classic sandwich technique, and we use that for a reason. Commend, recommend, commend. And we do that for a reason, the reason being that it works. But one of the things that Sarah also did was she gave some really good specific advice. For example, that David might have kept focus on specific issues rather than his presentation going as wide as it did. One thing in particular I'd like to commend Sarah on doing was deciding to provide an overhead evaluation. Rather than just speaking to David, who isn't here, but we'll watch this later, she gave us all advice. She gave us something all to take away, which is the sign of a good evaluation. On the subject of good evaluations, again, Jim Barber, a great evaluator. I aspire to be as good an evaluator as him. He used some lovely language and he was incredibly affirming at the beginning of his presentation, pointing out the journey that Antoinette has taken as a member of this club. And we all felt proud of Antoinette's presentation today, I feel quite sure. And Jim allowed us to share in that pride. He spoke at one stage about 3 things and held up 3 fingers, which are going to disappear with my background, but that's all right. But one thing I would suggest to Jim, when you, and to everybody in fact, when you are doing an evaluation of a Toastmasters project rather than evaluating a competition speech, there are specific objectives that the speaker is meant to achieve. And Jim spent so much time talking about the visuals involved in Antoinette's presentation that he didn't have much time to talk about what it was that she was actually meant to achieve. So I would remind us all to bear that in mind. When we are evaluating a speech as a manual or pathways presentation rather than a competition speech, there is something that we should be looking for specifically. Taking a look at some of our evaluations, what have we got here? I've got Theresa, really good use of the medium, camera and frame. It felt a little like it was being read, I might tell you, Theresa, which is just something that will come with more practice in a Toastmasters environment. But I really, really love the structure and message of your presentation. The table topics, really good topics, a good explanation given by Lou, well done here, and a good choice of people to give them to. Although there were so many people here, perhaps he might have made an executive decision and said, instead of 2-minute table topics, I'm going to ask you to do 1-minute table topics so everybody, or at least more people, would get a choice. But really good topics, really good presentations in the topics. Joy decided to answer her own question because she wasn't quite happy with the one that she was given, and that's a perfectly valid response to a table topic. John C. was amusing with the COVID, and the reason for the 19, John, you're actually correct, is because the virus first came out in 19, and so that's why the 19. Adrian, lots of fun there. I thought the story of the kids was really well done. Jay's panic over the oatmeal, yeah, I've been into, no, really well done. The only thing I would say was it felt a little perhaps deliberate. That may be your speaking style, but I just felt a little more excitement might have carried us along further. And Sagar, our new member, talking about the new normal, talking about absorbing energy, and just like Mum, really good. You were perilously close to being disqualified. And I can see that my red light is on and rotating, so that must mean that my time is up. I will now call for the vote counter to announce the results.
Hello, everybody. All right, I put the results in the chat box also. So the best speaker went to Antoinette. Congratulations. The best evaluator to Jim Barber. And the best table topics to John Kellyan.
Well done, everybody. And well done, all of the contributors. And thank you very much, Madam Vote Counter, for doing that. All right, I'm going to hand back to the presiding. Should I give it back to the Toastmaster or to the presiding officer? John, you're Toastmaster. What do you reckon? Give it back to you. John, quick, it's yours.
Conveniently, I'm both today. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Wonderful evaluation segment today because everyone was on time and had high density information in what they were sharing with their feedback today. I really loved it. We're right on time. That's an excellent meeting today. To wrap things up, I'm going to call on a few of our guests who I see here so they can give us some feedback on what they thought about the meeting. One person I've seen with a hand up for a very long time is Bernard. Bernard, would you like to tell us what you thought of our meeting today?
I don't even know how to put my hand up. It was fine. It was just fine.
Okay, thank you, Bernard. How about, I'm looking for people with video here. How about
if you'd like to say something,
Kin Hung?
Say the name again, John.
Kin.
Sorry, was just
hi.
Yeah.
Oh.
I need to unmute. Okay. Oh, hi. It's a wonderful meeting and I'm very enjoying the meeting and everything seems new to me and the flow is so nicely done and everything is very clear. The procedure is being guided through beforehand and the evaluation is fantastic and everyone is so charming as well. And I like the group chats a lot and people sharing some jokes in it as well. And I learned a lot of things. Thank you so much for letting me joining this meeting.
All right, thanks for your feedback. Of course, you and everyone who's a guest today is welcome back. All right, Marcano.
Hi. Well, honestly, I have to say that I enjoyed the meeting a lot. So you all did a great job. Honestly, I was like, okay, I feel like a little bit more prepared for tomorrow's online meeting here with the Bogota English Club. So I really appreciate that I had the chance to be here with you, to share this meeting and to learn so much. So thank you.
Hey, thanks again. And thanks to all of you who visited today. We're right on time. So I'm going to call an official end to the meeting. Nevertheless, if you want to stay, we're going to have more discussion after. Elaine.
Don't stop recording yet, John. Can I jump in, please? As Vice President of Membership, I want to thank all the guests who showed up. Great turnout. I do encourage everyone to save the chat. I would also love any of the guests who might come back because they're interested in membership with us, I'd love if you would send me a private message with that. And I want to thank everybody who did put intros into the chat since we didn't get to call on everybody before our meeting started. It was wonderful. Roger had something to say about timing, and because some people have been asking about that in the chat. Roger?
We can do that after our meeting has officially ended.
Okay, so please stay afterwards if you have additional questions for us. I will be among the members hanging around. Thank you, John.